Janet and Allan Ahlberg, Funnybones. Funnybones. This is how the story begins. On a dark, dark hill, there was a dark, dark town. In the dark, dark town, there was a dark, dark street. In the dark, dark street, there was a dark, dark house. In the dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark staircase. Down the dark, dark staircase, there was a dark, dark cellar. In the dark, dark cellar, some skeletons lived. There was a big skeleton, a little skeleton, and a dog skeleton. What shall we do tonight? Let's take the dog for a walk. One night, the big skeleton sat up in the bed, and he scratched his skull. What shall we do tonight? He said, let's take the dog for a walk, and the little skeleton, and frighten somebody. Good night. Good idea, so the big skeleton said. So the big skeleton, the little skeleton, the dog skeleton left the dark, dark cellar, climbed the dark, dark staircase, and stepped outside the dark, dark street. They walked past the houses on the shops, and then they walked past the zoo and the police station and went into the park. The big skeleton scratched his skull. What shall we do now? Let's play on the swings, the little skeleton, and now throw a stick at the dog, then frighten somebody. Good idea, the big skeleton said. What shall we do now? So the big skeleton, little skeleton, and dog skeleton walked around the dark, dark pond and past the dark, dark tennis courts and up the dark, dark swings. Let's play on the swings. The big skeleton and little skeleton played on the swings and threw the stick for the dog. Suddenly something happened. The dog skeleton chased the stick and tripped over the park bench, bumped into the tree. Woof. And ended up in a little pile of bones. Look at that, the big skeleton said. He's all come to pieces. What shall we do now? Let's put them together again, and the skeleton said. So the big skeleton, the little skeleton, and they put the dog skeleton together again, and they sang a song what they did it. The toe bones connected to the foot bone. The foot bones connected to the leg bone. The leg bones connected to the hip bone. And the hip bones connected to the back bones. Oof. Oof. Then he got mixed up in the toe bone, and the little skeleton said, there goes with one go, and the big skeleton. When they finished, the big skeleton said, that dog looks like a big funny to me. So he does, said the little skeleton. We've got his tail and wrong end and his head. Oof, the big skeleton. At last, the dog was properly put back together again, and the big skeleton and the little skeleton sang another song. These bones can bark again, can run around in the park again, and frighten people in the dark again. The big skeleton scratched his skull. That reminds me, he said, we've forgotten somebody. Let's do it on the way home then, said the skeleton. Good idea, big skeleton. I wish we had a nice little boy to frighten. I wish we had a nice old lady. So the big skeleton, the little skeleton, the dog skeleton left the dark, dark swings, went out to this dark, dark town, and tried to find somebody. The trouble was, there was everybody in the bed. The policeman in the police station was in bed. Even the animals were in the zoo. Of course, the skeleton animals were awake. Squeak, 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 squeak. Snort, oink. Gee, up, Nellie. Good evening. All whose cheeky boy then have a cup of tea, plenty of Polly up in the kettle of the mother. Let's have a ride on the elephant, skeleton said. Let's have a word and a parrot, skeleton. The big skeleton scratched his skull. Let's keep up the way. And the crocodile skeleton. Then they went back to the street, and when they all could not find anybody, the frightened big skeleton said, what shall we do now? Let's frighten each other. Hey, bye-bye. Those skeletons scratched his skull and then frighten each other. He said, that's a better do nothing. Good idea, big skeleton said. Come on, get it. Gotcha. So after the big skeleton frightened the little skeleton frightened the big skeleton, the big skeleton, the little skeleton frightened the dog skeleton frightened the man. Yeah, woof. Woo, help. They hit around corners and frighten each other. They climb up lampposts and they frighten each other. They jump out of the dustbins and frighten each other. And all the way home. And that's how the story ends. On the dark, dark hill, there was a dark, dark town. In the dark, dark town, there there was a dark, dark street. In the dark, dark street, there was a dark, dark house. In the dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark staircase. Down this dark, dark staircase, there was a dark, dark cellar. In the dark, dark cellar, some skeletons lived. They still do. The end.